agenda, Maureen, you got the recording going?
This is Brian. I just heard it start.
Okay. You want to read your disclaimer? Or
This is
claimer?
Brian. Be happy to, Mark. This is Brian Yates with Schwartz, Page and Harding. Welcome to the Montgomery County MUD 46 Special Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, March the 2nd, 2021. Hope everybody's doing well. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through the remote meeting procedures and then we'll perform a roll call. So to begin with, need to remind everyone the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we will continue the practice of having a roll call vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely today so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name or your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with our board of directors, Mark Vonderow.
Present.
Margie Podjalinski.
Present.
Deidre Eklund.
Here.
Scott Custer. Is Scott Custer in the meeting?
We haven't seen him.
No, he's not.
Okay. Okay, George Newman.
Here.
Okay, that'll complete the roll call for our directors. We'll move on to Woodlands Water staff. Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
Present.
Maureen Bourgeois.
Present.
Jeannie Scott. Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
Here.
Any other members of Woodlands Water in the meeting? Okay, if not, do we have any representatives from San Jacinto River Authority in the meeting? I don't hear any. Do we have any MUD 46 consultants in the meeting? If not, we'll move on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well. All right, Maureen, any other phone numbers or folks that have not identified themselves?
No, there are none.
Okay, that'll complete the roll call. I'll hand it over to you, Mark, to begin the agenda. Thank you.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody fared well and didn't have any broke pipes this past couple of weeks. So, George, do you want to take the lead and start it off and get some brainstorming going?
Well, I'd talked to, I guess by email, text, I'm not sure which one it was, with Jim Stinson. And he proposed the idea of working to try and have an efficient meeting. And one of the things he had some thoughts that he wanted to add at the beginning, I think. He said it's where he's at on the agenda.
Yes.
Is that a fair way to introduce, or is that too brief?
Mark, do you have a copy of the agenda?
I have it, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
So,
Well, I don't mind leading us through the agenda. We're actually on the consent agenda. Well, I don't know why it says consent. We're on the regular agenda.
regular.
Yeah. Item number 3, receive feedback from the Woodlands Water staff on goals discussion at the February 17th board meeting. And I would just, want to assure the board and emphasize, we are here to support you, your goals, your desires, and your objectives. The only thing that I offer, just try to keep in mind that the more things that we can do that are uniform between our MUDs, the more efficient we operate. And we can't always take the opportunity to stress that. But look, we're here to serve you guys as best we can and meet your desires and your needs and your goals. So we're ready for an open discussion and try to accommodate you any way we can.
All right.
Well, did anybody have any feedback that they wanted to share since that discussion back in January?
We did get a written document from George and a written document from Deidre that I'm fairly certain we had shared with the board members. And I think Maureen is prepared to put that on the screen today, if that will help stimulate the discussion.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Haven't seen Deidre's.
Nor have I. And I need to get with staff up there. Y'all have been having some trouble contacting me and sent some emails and had phone calls, and I didn't have a phone ringing or receive any of the emails. So I'll get with staff later on that, but I'll wait for are you gonna put Deidre's comments up?
Yeah, and
Okay.
part of, I don't know if this is the case here, but, we set up emails for all of our board of directors that relate to the Woodlands Water Agency in your MUD district. And we're finding that a lot of the directors aren't using those. And sometimes we just automatically send it out to that MUD address and it's not being received. So I'm not sure what happened in this case, but that could be part of the problem.
All right, I'll get on top of that.
And I guess at some point, we're going to need all of the MUD directors to firm up what email they're going to use. If they're not going to use the one that we've created and take advantage of that, then we need to quit paying for it.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I can start, or Deidre, would you prefer to go first?
I don't remember what my goals are, so I'm rereading them.
Okay.
You can go ahead and go first.
I would start with number 2. And we've had several conversations about improving transparency of MUD 46. And these 3 items were a couple that came to mind. And so I'll just blow through them real quickly. And if there's discussion, y'all can stop me. And I guess the first one was consider live posting of MUD Zoom meetings. And I'm assuming we're going to continue to have Zoom meetings. I hear that our governor is relaxing his mask order. Don't know. The second one is consider posting links to the Zoom meeting recordings on our webpage. And third, again, consider posting the entire packet on our webpage. And my feeling is it contains tremendous amount of information that is worthy of being shared. Scott says he's at work.
You get a text?
Yeah, I got a text from Scott.
Good deal.
Didn't translate the meeting to his work calendar.
Okay.
So third item was I'd like to improve communications from the Woodlands Water to our board of directors. And what I'm thinking is have all documentation. This is one that we've run into several times where people come into the meetings and they bring handouts to the meetings rather than put their material in the packet. So you don't have a chance to read it in advance. Like to be informed of the content of staff filings to other government entities. Like we think we were going to have a requirement to have EPA risk assessment sent in by the end of the year. And so far, I haven't seen it, don't know what's in it. And that goes back to my plant experience where that kind of information is shared with everybody on the staff, and everybody knows what their expectation is of what to do in an emergency. And then I'd like to see better reporting of major projects, including what's been done so far, what's the status of spending, what's the schedule and completion.
And I can tell you, we don't have any objection to any of those goals.
So I started off with those because I thought they'd be easy. And maybe that's all it has to be said. I don't know.
Okay. What involves, this is Mark Vonderell, what involves in the feasibility of rainwater capture in the projects to reduce groundwater demand, to reduce irrigation expense? What?
So that's of course valid. I started off with, my way of thinking is, I tend to jump to conclusions and what is it that we can do to help, and I didn't include any of my logic to get there, how my thoughts to, get to that conclusion. And so I'm thinking that everybody here has in their mind that we want to reduce the amount of groundwater that we consume. And I'm seeing that at least out in our neighborhood that we're still experiencing subsidence. And I'm basing that off of the PAM site number 68, where it continues to show declines in surface level, and looks like it's maybe running about 1 centimeter a year. We don't have, there's a lot of scatter in the data, so it's real hard to say, well, here's what it really is. But, drawing a line through that scattered data, to me, looks like you got about 1 centimeter a year of subsidence. So I'm thinking it would be beneficial to see, are there opportunities to reduce the amount of water that's consumed into irrigation? Or are there other sources of water that don't have to be potable that could be used and either reduce cost and or especially reduce consumption off of groundwater? So I'm seeing other communities talk about rainwater capture and use it instead of potable water. I haven't seen any big scale projects. And what I'm asking for, is it feasible to contain some of the rainwater that is currently running off down the ditch into Spring Creek, for example? And I guess when you ask about feasibility, one question first off is it even legal to retain that water? And I guess one of the thoughts I have is that, when we watch the San Jacinto River Authority, they go through a real nice discussion and logic path to determine whether an idea is feasible or not. And they're looking at it from both technical and expense point of view. And I guess that's what I'm throwing out is as a goal. Can we determine how much opportunity exists, and is it technically and legally feasible to retain that water? And I'm thinking either retain it in what's currently a retention pond, or is there opportunity in any of these really large ditches to retain some level of water where they're currently empty? So
That's funny. I helped write a paper in college about rainwater harvesting. I can send you a link to my paper.
cool.
Would, Brian, are you on the line? Could we hire Deidre's firm to do a feasibility study on this?
This is Brian. That's an interesting concept. I think we're gonna have to chew on that a little bit.
So what I'm going to add into that regarding rainwater and utilization, there are areas in the woodlands that use water reuse. I think that the country club uses water reuse, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that they do. There are lots of ways to utilize either rainwater or reuse of wastewater even.
And yeah, the San Jacinto River Authority has contracts with the golf courses to utilize effluent. They pump a certain amount of effluent into certain holding ponds, and then the golf course pumps it out of those ponds and irrigates parts of the golf course. I'm not privy to all the details of the contracts, but it seems like my recollection is that all of the effluent that they have available is under contract with the golf course. Brian, do you remember if that's correct? They're required to discharge a certain portion downstream, but then a certain portion does go into golf course ponds for irrigation.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit sticky. And Deidre, you probably are aware of this from your research about when water becomes surface water, becomes a surface water right, and rights of folks downstream to receive that water. And there are some differences if it's purple pipe projects, which is shorthand for wastewater reuse that's coming straight out of the wastewater treatment plant after it's been treated. And those are the kinds of, and I think the way the logistics work for the golf course is it was more cost effective to discharge and then it go, I believe, into Lake Woodlands and then pull out from there, but they had a volume attached to that to be able to provide to the golf courses. And so, we don't, of course, in the Woodlands operate the wastewater treatment plant. So that's not a project that the MUD is doing directly, but, it is a Woodlands related reuse project. The rainwater harvesting idea is, that's a interesting concept, and we'd have to chew on that a little bit more. There are, a number of reuse projects that have been encouraged throughout the Houston metro region. There's actually, it's called the Larry's Toolbox program in North Fort Bend Regional Water Authority. I represent some districts in that area, and they have an incentive program to where you can get a credit back on some of your pumpage fees that you have to pay to the Regional Water Authority if you participate in a certain number of water conservation programs. And that's actually been a really successful program. And they've had different initiatives there, smart meters being one of them, like what we're doing, reuse programs at your wastewater treatment plant. And some of those are cost prohibitive. Some of them make sense. And but I'm not aware of any that involved rainwater harvesting on a reuse scale. So I'd have to think about that a little bit more.
I had a conversation with Paul Nelson, and
Mhm.
you know, Paul has real deep background in the city of Houston, and
Yep.
so his comment was, you know, before you start restricting flow out of a ditch, you'd have to get an agreement with the city of Houston, or permission, I think the word he used. So it's not necessarily something we could just say, let's go do it. It requires some legal work and also engineering study to see if it's a workable idea.
I think what you're thinking about or maybe referencing is what goes into the drainage channels and who owns what goes into the drainage channels. So
Right.
all the streams.
Right.
Now, what you would look for typically is a high user and how to utilize that. So if you've got
Right.
an aesthetic pond that's not really a pond or a lake, and you needed to feed that, and you were using groundwater or surface water to replenish that, you would look at those areas to try to reuse, or like a golf course, something like that. Homeowners would go towards the rain barrels that I think it's the Green Initiative or
Woodlands Green.
Mhm.
Green that
Mhm.
they have. It would be more of a homeowner initiative regarding irrigation of their personal property. Like from an initial just thought process of it, I can't think of anywhere in the woodlands that would utilize enough water for it to be feasible to capture it and release it, because the lake woodlands is fed by other sources. It's not ground and surface water.
So the other body of water that's interesting is Bear Branch. Ron Kelling tells me that water is owned by the development company.
Mhm.
Whether that's could be available or not, don't know. It basically covers the whole northern edge or the whole northern boundary of Sterling Ridge. You know, the Mud 46 part of Sterling Ridge.
So the other thing, so initially you would just think of where's the big place that I can give the water to, and then
Right.
you get the water there. So if you've
Right.
got, if you have to pump it, that requires, maintenance of the equipment and the pumps and everything like that. So you just have to see where you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, this
I
is
agree with
Brian.
you.
I think
Go
the ownership the comment is accurate about the Woodlands Development Company. I think they own the dirt and the water, if I'm not mistaken. But I think what threshold issue here would be is kind of what Deidre is getting at is, what's the water going to be repurposed for? The muds don't do any irrigation. It would have to be in the township. I don't know how much they have actual irrigation of green spaces in the area. So you're gonna have a fair amount of capital cost to get it from wherever the source is to wherever the use would be, and trying to figure out, is there any economically viable project out there that would make sense.
I think Deidre's process is right on, that you have to identify where the potential users are. And then is it possible to satisfy any of them? So I look at up and down the street here, up and down Terramont and Branch Crossing, and I see each neighborhood entrance has an extensive irrigation system put in by the development company. I think the development company still runs it out here.
Is it the development company or is it township?
I'm not absolutely sure. I think the development company maintains, or has up until the last year or so, maintained the ground.
George, this is Margie. I don't think so. I think all that's under the township now.
Okay,
Yeah, that would have to be, we'd have to check on that, but I don't think the development is involved in that. I think that's been turned over to the township.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
you know, we know people who sell that water. And I assume that every one of those lines has a meter on it. And the Woodlands Water knows how much water is going into those. Is that fair, Jim?
Yes, we could probably retrieve that data, yes.
Yeah, this is Brian. Another part of the analysis is you can't commingle untreated and treated water. So that's one of the things with these other reuse projects that we look at is, you know, the cost to run additional lines to be able to run that untreated water and to you know, get it to the distribution points. So that we can't just, you know, put the water into the system and have it,
Sure.
you know, irrigate the area.
And that's my idea of all those are components of a feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
I think before you even would have to even pay for a feasibility route, you would just have a list of how much water you think you could save, and if it's worth it, if you know, utilizing how much, you know, where we are on the groundwater versus surface water scale, because I'm assuming you're just trying to reduce groundwater usage to further stop subsidence. So that's what I would probably do before I had somebody come in and look at it.
All right. So you want me to propose some words for that and bring it back next time? Or would you prefer to do that?
Well, George, my question is, I have a question. This is Margie. Who's the end user? Who's actually going to use this water? That's the question.
Well, I think that's what Deidre's trying to identify is who are the big users. You know, is it golf courses? Is it development company on, you know, the sides of the roads? I think it has to be a big user where you can completely isolate them from the drinking water system.
So who would that be?
Well, I for example, look over here at this Player Bend golf course or Player golf course, and I don't know where they're getting their water from. It's not Purple Pipe.
Okay, George, did you go out there and look when they were building that?
No, I wasn't here.
Okay, I did. We went out there and looked at it. Mark, I think, was with me. This is Margie. And there is so much sand under there. It's almost like the Sahara Desert. So it doesn't use as much water to keep that going as what you might think, because the integrity was built in the beginning to not be overusing water. And we could certainly check on that, but I'm just here to tell you that when they built that, they had a huge water initiative involved. Richard was part of that project, Richard Durr. So we could check with him on that.
And it would actually be beneficial to the end user to try to reduce their groundwater and surface water usage. It's beneficial to the homeowners also, but it's beneficial to their pocketbook. So I think first you would just identify some places that have open space, and then you would just look and see how much water they use each month. And then you can kind of take it from there and say, okay, well, is this enough water usage to even make a dent? The other thing that you have to consider is wherever you place it. You you know, there's certain requirements, TCQ regulations that don't allow certain, you know, reuse situations in any situation where a person will be exposed to it.
Right.
I know that the wastewater treatment facility on Sawdust has a line that runs to Lake Harrison, which is at the wharf. That's been in there since way, way back. And I think that the golf course takes water out of Lake Harrison. I think that's how that works.
So is that the only golf course or are there multiple ones?
I don't have any idea. I'm not a
There's-
golfer, but I do remember way, way back going out with Margie. Man, that was a long time ago. So
Yep.
I do remember going out and having a tour of that.
Yep, we did.
I don't
Well-
mind. I don't mind checking in with the golf course people and seeing where they get their water and how much reuse they get from the river authority. Probably the river authority, they could probably tell us.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is Brian. I was thinking maybe the first place we start as it relates to anything with golf courses is with Ron Kelly and Chris Meeks. Ask them to confirm who they're providing it to and what, you know, other feasibility analysis they've done for possibly providing to other golf courses, and perhaps it wasn't feasible. I feel like this topic was revisited a few years back
Yep.
about possibly expanding the reuse to other properties, and it didn't for whatever reason. I don't think it panned out. So I think we probably should start with asking Ron and Chris for their background on who they're currently serving and who else they've looked into, but wasn't feasible to serve, and go from there on that.
There's
And-
at least 3 golf courses. There's the Player Course, the TPC, and the Palmer. So there's at least 3 golf courses in the Woodlands.
Oh, yeah.
And I emailed Jim the paper that I helped with back in college. And it's just it's like a paper that was for the Texas Engineering Cooperative or something. So that might give ideas.
I'll review it and I'll send it out to the directors as well.
Okay. All right. Have we chewed this one up pretty good?
I think so. We got an action item out of that is to contact Ron Kelly and Chris Meeks. And,
Correct.
you know, I don't have a problem calling either one of them.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to get a report added to our agenda for our March regular meeting? Report from SJRA on reuse water customers?
What I would recommend, I'm happy to reach out to them and just have them brief the board on what they've looked at in the past and what they're doing now and what they may have plans for the future regarding reuse water to golf courses
Okay.
and others.
Well, that'd be great. I appreciate that.
Okay. And I'm going to go way back and I'm going to say, going to do this and think about an old water board director named Dave English. He loved the water that was used from the wastewater treatment facility. He loved to see it go into Lake Harrison. So Dave, here's to you. All right. And he'd bring a dog to the meetings. So he was a dog lover. So if you want to bring your dog, bring your dog. All right. We're going to go on to number 2, improve transparency of MUD 46. Okay. live links, agendas. All right, who wants to start off the conversation? What do you want?
Aren't we posting the link to the Mud 46 meetings on the agendas?
Yes,
Yes.
Video?
yes.
There,
Rain?
They, for example, the one that's posted for today's meeting, it looks like it's a PDF of a photocopy. So the link shows up blue, but you can't click on it and get to the Zoom meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
They just need to be live links instead of copies before they get uploaded to the website.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, easier access to the Zoom meeting. Not that, you know, I feel like this is an easy one to potentially discount because, you know, we can count on a hand how many times somebody shows up from the public into our meetings, in the Mud 46. Trustee meetings, different matter, right? Trustee meetings, there's like 10 or 12 people. But I've said it before, if we take the township or heaven's sakes, Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District or anybody and agree, we have to agree on some standard for, making what we talk about available. And in both of those cases, they've literally agenda item links on their meetings, and you can click on the agenda item or a symbol next to it and literally see the recorded video regarding that particular topic of the meeting. And, Shelley, God bless her, she has to do 11 sets of meeting minutes. And so the level of detail in the minutes is extraordinarily low through no fault of her own. I think she's being compliant with requirements there. I just feel like we need to consider making it super easy to people to see our video and what we discussed, and to George's point, to attend the meeting easily with a accurate link.
Brian, this is Margie. How long do these meetings have to be archived? What does it take to archive these meetings?
This is Brian. So I'm trying to remember now what was our rule of thumb. It's been a while since we first started doing these Zoom meetings. What we were doing them for. I think similar to meeting notes, it would need to be at least
It was 90
days after the date that the minutes are approved.
Okay.
It's
Shelley
similar
saying
to
she thinks
meeting
it was
notes.
90 days.
After the date that the minutes are approved.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what would be involved with keeping them longer than that, or having them be more permanent records of the district.
Why wouldn't we want them to be?
This is Brian. I mean, it would just be storage.
Okay, so it's a cost matter? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other reason not to keep video archives of our meetings?
I guess one question I have, and Brian, maybe you know the answer, is will we be allowed to keep doing Zoom meetings? Yeah, I heard today that the governor has relaxed his mask requirement. And does that mean we're going to be required to come together again? Or would we have a sort of a hybrid thing where you could be present or attend by Zoom?
This is Brian. So as far as the governor's action today, we're waiting to see the documentation behind the announcement. Clearly, it removed the mask requirements and the reduced capacity at certain restaurant and other establishments and business establishments. But I have not seen anything, and we are confirming with the governor's office, but have not seen anything to indicate that the action taken today in any way modified his proclamation that suspended the in-person meeting requirements under the Texas Open Meetings Act. So until we get any sort of official documentation from the governor's office rescinding that proclamation, then we are still status quo as far as meetings are concerned. As far as going forward post-COVID, that's all speculation. It would require, as far as what would happen, there's speculation about, different alternatives, some of which you mentioned, others as well, other options as well. But any of those would require legislative changes. And I'd just be speculating if I said I thought it was going to be one thing or another. I honestly don't think anybody knows. I do know the legislature is very sensitive to issues about transparency, and anything that would be perceived as reducing transparency in their minds would, I think, have a tough go to be passed. I mean, there have been proposals in the past about allowing for alternative in-person participation, and that has not historically been authorized by the legislature as being because it's been viewed as not as transparent and not as easily accessible by the public. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of perceptions have changed as a result of COVID and how people have seen that business has been able to react and be conducted remotely. I think a lot of folks are reevaluating some of the previous assumptions about remote work, remote meetings, and things of that nature. So how much of that will filter through and what the legislature will allow for public meetings, too soon to say.
Now, regarding the Zoom meetings that we're having now, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't we make them available to somebody that calls us. What's the challenge or the difficulty in just posting it to the MUD website?
Who's that question to?
Brian.
To Maureen or Shelley and Brian, yeah.
It's not difficult at all.
So if that's a request, I think that's absolutely, we do that.
Yeah, I think that's your bare minimum. At some point, to George's point, if and when Zoom meetings cease, because right now we have a convenient way to record our meetings, which is great. As soon as we're back in the building, that vanishes. And I guess I don't know how to say it strongly enough. I think that's just a huge miss. I think we need to consider recording the meetings and figuring out how to get that implemented. But maybe that's not a discussion for this meeting in particular. But if we set it as a goal, and we were aligned to that, but obviously we're one of many groups. But just I guess for the record, I just think we need to strongly consider that.
So this would be a goal, and we don't have to satisfy the goal today or determine how to do it today. But this would be an objective we'd work towards over the next few months.
I think the San Jacinto River Authority is moving towards recording their meetings, and the number that Ron Kelling shared with me that they're investing into technology to make sure that gets done was a pretty surprisingly big number.
More than I think.
I don't know if that would be applicable to what.
I couldn't hear Margie's comment. What was your comment, Margie?
I said, it's probably more than you think. I talked to my daughter about it today and it's quite costly, I think. So we can get some numbers. I mean, we can try to align how much that is. It's be for not one meeting now, you're talking 10. So it's 10 different meetings and somebody to record it and somebody to keep up with it and somebody to archive it. And that's the cost that's going to be involved. It's not just recording one meeting, it's 10 meetings. So everything's times 10.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim. I didn't mean, she made a comment. I want to make sure I heard
Yeah.
it. Sorry, Jim.
No, it just surprised me. They only have, just the numbers. I'm thinking it was the $40,000 or $50,000 expense that I would thought you could just put a little camera phone up and click, go, and that was it. But evidently complying with legal requirements required a little more than what I thought. But.
And they even have their own IT department, so they can do some things just internally. And don't have to go out.
We have an open invite from Gordy to use the township.
Well, y'all laugh, but
we do.
They do have all the infrastructure there in their little conference room off to the side.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's any number of ways to solve it, but it would be, I guess it'd be, good to know how many people share the point of view at least, because if we all agree on it, we can solve it. But if we don't, then obviously.
Mark Rondeau here. I don't have a problem recording our meetings and posting them. All boils down to cost. So.
Well, no, yeah, and what we're talking about is when we get back in open session and we're meeting here in the building, and it's not just your mud, it's all the mud. So I think it's probably a topic that should be posed to the trustees, because they would oversee what protocols and what formats would be in place for the staff here and the meetings in person.
Yeah.
And the manpower.
And maybe you add one to that count of 10 and make it 11 and include the trustees in doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, you got a request to share at the next trustee.
Do I? I can't tell. I can't tell if Margie and Deidre are behind that or not.
No, I'm behind it. If you
Okay.
just get the cost analysis, and then if Gordy wants to have all of our water meetings held at the township, does he have the date, the calendar, the time,
Well,
to be able to support that?
Sure. I mean, if I guess if we choose to go that route versus investing in a camera, yeah, that would be an option to consider.
Could we invite Gordy to come to our meeting and discuss it with us?
Logistically, guys, we don't want to go over there and hold our meetings. That's
No,
a fun topic for discussion, but it's not realistic.
it isn't. But that's what I'm saying.
I said it a little tongue in cheek, but just to say that in the very worst case. So hopefully we can do our own investment and have a pretty simple mechanism. It's not like we need to do camera switches or anything.
Well, one thing that's interesting is with these Zoom meetings, I've seen them where they do the camera switch automatically, and it works pretty darn slick. We're not doing that today, but some of those meetings, they work real nicely. So, and what we had for camera switch and camera tracking 6 months ago may have improved quite a bit so far.
So if I were to summarize, it sounds like, can we take action? We can agree that we'll put the Zoom links in our MUD page and get a live link to the meeting. Are those two decisions that were just made? And then, or I guess we have to vote, I don't know if it's a vote or what, but and then,
here,
yeah.
we can add that to our March agenda and vote on it.
That's what it have to be. Okay. And then explore possibilities through the trustees on recording, huh?
Yes, sir. Mark Vondereau here. Yes, sir, Scott.
So I just want to add that that I'm absolutely not opposed to transparency. I want everything to be transparent as possible. I just I'm a cost benefit analysis type person.
Yep.
So cost has to match the benefit. And of course, you know, if you go through and say, well, the benefit to being transparent is invaluable. But there has to be some sort of quantification of the, you know, information, and it's not just a simple matter of getting a blink camera and somebody just like turning it on. So if we did it, I would want to do it correctly, so we're not having to deal with issues of, well, you know, we can't hear you, or we dropped the link, that type of thing. So I just want to make sure we're going to think through all of that.
This Mark Vondereau here. This is a question to staff. How many requests, freedom of information, how many requests do we get for anything from our residents as far as information requests, you know, meeting agendas, whatever? I'll shut up. What kind of requests do we get?
I think the answer is it kind of goes in cycles depending on the topic of the day. But I can tell you, I haven't received any, but they don't come to me. Shelley or Maureen?
I've
can y'all
had
share?
one this year.
One.
One.
Okay.
Had none for meeting information, only audit reports.
Yeah, this is
AMI.
why I prefaced.
Sewer map.
Yeah, this is why I prefaced my comment with, it'll be super easy to talk ourselves out of this based on the frequency of access. So I would challenge the premise of the question a little.
I would think that that maybe that was just towards just seeing how people are communicating. And I think part of what goes hand in hand with the transparency part is making sure that people even know that we're out here, and this, you know, this is how their government functions. So if people don't even know and they just think that the township is a city and I just go to the township if I have any questions about anything in my city, that is what I think we're going against. Not necessarily that we're not being transparent, just people do not know what we are, what we do, or how their Woodlands Township actually functions. So I think that maybe we would have to, you know, to get the numbers coming in and to get the numbers asking for minutes, you have to get the information out there that you're even in existence.
Truth.
Mark Vondereau here. I'm for transparency. Let's see what we're, you know, let's travel down that road and see what becomes of it. I do agree. It came up in the One Water Task Force meeting, comment by Bruce Reiser. He, I asked him to have people identify their self and where they live and what mud district. And he laughed and he said, most people couldn't even probably tell you what mud district they lived in. I thought that was comical at first, tongue in cheek, whatever. I think I've heard that statement today, but that's the truth. Over my experience of years talking to people, they can. I'm just amazed at how many people don't know what mud district they live in. So
yeah, I don't disagree.
To what extent, you know, what is our obligation to? Is the word educate the public? But I don't have a problem with transparency. I don't have a problem with recording the meetings. I don't have a problem with any of that, and it all boils down to cost. So
Mhm.
let's kick that down. Let's get it going. See what we come up with. So we got two. We're going to ask the River Authority to school us on water reuse, and now we're going to look into getting the recordings posted, the meeting packets posted. Can we go on to number 3, or do we want to keep talking about number 2?
Mark, before you go on to 3, this is George.
Okay.
Is Deidre made some interesting comments that maybe ought to be woven in here somewhere, either as a separate statement or include them in here. And I'm not sure how that should be done.
We'll keep talking. We'll help you.
Help me remember, Deidre, exactly what you recommended. It had to do with getting people knowledgeable.
Yeah, it was just increasing presence, increasing your footprint.
There you go.
And those kind of feed into some of my goals.
I know that, and I'm sort of trying to lead you into saying either have a separate goal or weave yours in here somehow.
Okay, so I put increased social media presence. I find the information on Twitter. I don't know how many followers Woodlands Water has on Twitter. I could probably look it up. But that's how
There's about 540 right now.
That's more than I would have guessed.
Yeah, I've been trying to kind of boost that and do retweets and following and everything the last couple of weeks. So
I think you
Thank
do
you.
an excellent job. You know, because that's where I get my information. I set an alert. I get my information, and that's how I was getting all the information throughout the winter dusting. So, but I think what all of us can kind of do is
593.
is get, you have more followers than I do, but but you know, kind of get that information out there. Have, you know, I like it when the Woodlands Township retweets Woodlands Water, or you guys kind of work concurrently, because I'm sure the township has more followers. And I'm sure I could ask my EITs about how to get more engagement on social media. But so I think just the retweets, getting Woodlands Township to go through. I'm sure we have it linked on our page. I'm not sure, on our Woodlands Water page.
It is.
And I think something that all of us can do is just anytime that we're on a Facebook, I don't know if you guys do Facebook, or anytime we're on any sort of social media, or anytime we're engaging with the public, we can put, hey, you know, follow Woodlands Water on Twitter. You know, that's something that we as individual MUD board members can do. The other thing that we can do is I'm sure are we all in Sterling Ridge? I don't think we're all in Sterling Ridge.
No, I'm not in Sterling Ridge. I'm in High Oak,
Are you in Grogan's or Panther Creek Village?
Grogan's. I'm in High Oaks. Is my
Okay.
name.
So I think the other thing that we can do is you know, go to the village association meetings, or, you know, I'm actively involved in my village association, so Sterling Ridge, but maybe come up with a plan on going out and meeting the village associations, because the Woodlands Township has started doing that. It was Ann Snyder. She started giving presentations in our township village meeting on the township. And so I know that, you know, is work for people, but if everybody just kind of try to do that, just be more engaged in the public, that might help. Talk to your neighbor. You know, maybe we have campaigns throughout the year or something to try to increase engagement. Or there's a Imagine a Day Without Water, and the city of Houston has this whole campaign on Imagine a Day Without Water, and they put out they have like all these branded type of material that they know how to hit it and where to hit it. So maybe if we have something like that, and then when we go back into where we're able to have functions, I know the River Authority participated in some of the Woodlands Green Up Cleanup or something like that. Like they had a booth. Maybe if we also shared in their booth, just to engage the public a little more. Those are my thoughts.
I would like to say, this is Margie, that on Jim's behalf, they do a heck of a job with Facebook. And anytime there's a water break, they've got it on Facebook. And anybody that's following Facebook with Woodlands Water, you can find out immediately what's going on with the water. So the Facebook presence is very good. You get a lot of updates on there, especially in the summer with anything that's people digging into pipes or whatever the case might be. They always put it on Facebook. I have a Twitter account, but I've never utilized Woodlands Water for Twitter. I'm not on it enough to really utilize it, but Facebook has a great presence.
And we're trying to use both platforms equally. You know, whatever we put on the Facebook, we're trying to do Twitter and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's a goal of ours.
Well, that's been positive, Jim. That's been a real positive in the last year. You guys have had so many TACUS people digging in through the put in pipes or whatever that, you know, every time there's a broken pipe, you guys haven't listed. So that's been very good. I think that's been very efficient.
The other thing is I'm actively involved in AWA, so that's the Association of Water. I'm actively engaged in that. There are awards that come out for this conference called Texas Water every year, and there's awards that are related towards publication and presence. I think we should try to go after those awards.
What do you have to do to go after a reward?
You just have to submit the application. You just have to nominate.
Okay.
And so like then one of them is it was about like a publication that you did. It was you know, public engagement or something like that, and you just had to send them the article or the publication that you had produced that year, and for a nomination.
And Deidre, yeah, I think it's a great suggestion. We have focused on other organizations, and we've gotten great awards from the Texas Water Development Board, Blue Legacy Award, the HGAC. We've received their great region award. AWBD Top Award in Water Conservation, Galveston Bay Foundation. So you're right. The American Water Works Association is an arena that we haven't pushed as heavily, but we will certainly do that. Happy to do that.
And I know like the River Authority is actively involved in Texas Water, so I don't think it would. I think, you know, maybe going hand in hand for those awards or conferences, and then we promoting. I don't know if we promote ourselves enough or pat ourselves enough on the back. I mean, not me personally, but I don't know if y'all pat yourselves enough on the back. For Imagine a Day Without Water, I requested a couple, maybe 2 years back. I don't know if Jim, you were there, maybe. But I requested an agenda item for the Woodlands Township to issue a proclamation that it was a day without water. And then I just made a speech at the township meeting, just thanking all of our water and wastewater workers and operators. So that's just another way to engage the public.
I do remember. Yes, I do.
Some people recently have had several days without water.
They didn't have to imagine it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't imagine it here. You know, it didn't occur here. And so that should be a pat on the back. Because that's not easy.
Yeah, this is Scott. Finding more opportunities like that, perhaps it's hard to paint a value to it, but it would be a good idea. I just happen to think that this utility here that you're running with all this great support, Jim. I mean, this is a world-class water utility. I mean, you guys do an amazing job, and to the points made earlier on what does the MUDs do, and perhaps even, you know, the township, and people may conflate the township with the providing of water. I doubt too many people do that, but nonetheless, and in particular, with all of, I'm sure, pending activities on incorporation and discussions around consolidation of MUDs or whatever happens. I feel like threads that put forth a prominent point of view and more of the public on the MUDs and more of the public on the effectiveness of this utility, despite being, you know, very restrictive on and very conservative on funding levels and bonds, XYZ. I just think anything we can do to that end will be important, particularly the next 2 years, if you know, whatever it is in terms of incorporation and how that proceeds. One Water Task Force. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to compete for the public's point of view and prominence on who's leading in the water related thought leadership, right? So that I'm just all for any opportunities to grow this utilities footprint in that regard.
Mark Vonderow here. Good comment, Scott. I agree. We need to do anything and everything to let the people know we are a world-class development, and we do have a blessing that we didn't lose any water during the last couple of weeks when we had the freeze. That's great.
You know, a different way to phrase that, instead of another, imagine a day without water, phrase it as, we had another day of full pressure on our water.
Oh, that's just the
Another reliable day of water pressure.
That's just the national campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's in October, maybe
Yeah.
November.
But I guess what I'm saying is, and you know, Maureen, you know, y'all do a great job on the Twitter. But if you came to the trustees, see, I never know what I can say with Open Meetings Act. But if you came to the trustees and you said, "Hey, we're gonna add a staff member that's only gonna do social media," like, to me that would be oh, okay, you know, great, got it. Like, that's a no-brainer kind of investment. You know, just because of how important I think that is, and I only say that to illustrate the point. I don't think you can overdo that aspect. And I'm not saying that y'all aren't doing a good job to that end, because I do think that you know, to Margie, your point, the information's on point on Facebook.
And again, let me emphasize for some of you that are new, the Texas Water Development Board puts out what's called a Blue Legacy Award, which is one of their top awards. And we did win that a few years back. I was in Austin and received it personally. So that was a big accomplishment. I don't want that to go unrecognized or unnoticed. It's been a few years back, but we did nail that one.
That logo should be on my water bill. I'm dead serious.
I'm looking at it right here in my office, but yeah.
It should be on my water bill.
Yeah.
It should. I mean, is it on our website?
It was, well, I
It probably
don't
was
know.
at the time,
Probably
yeah.
At the time, but
Yeah, anyway, so more of that.
All our
Got it.
words up there.
Cool.
So I don't know what the action is from that.
I think you are proposing a sort of a conglomerate goal of increased social media presence.
Yeah.
Increase and improve.
More
I-
of, yeah.
I
Keep
can-
doing.
I can follow AWA and just reach out to Jim when I see those awards come up. I could do that on my part. And I'll keep talking at my village association meetings.
And if there's anything, Jim, you think that comes in the benchmarking that we get every month in our packet, where you're ranking us, or we're being shown against all the other MUDs, representative MUDs, if there's anything in there worth pointing out, we should do so. Pulling out any of those key metrics and how we're doing. There may be a story to tell in that data.
I'll keep a closer eye on that, as you know, is prepared through the San Jacinto River Authority.
True, yeah.
Their household is more like a large public utility than our individual MUDs, but I'm happy to keep an eye on it and bring things to the attention as it's appropriate.
Yeah, maybe you'll have recommendations there. Cool, thanks.
You want to go through the rest of mine?
Sure.
Okay, the only other really thing that I had was like a MUDs 101 seminar for new members. I mean, I know about MUDs because I worked in them so long, but I have a feeling that there is some new members that have come on. So maybe a little presentation on MUDs might help them. I may even have one that I can send. I'll have to find it.
And that's a good suggestion. We've had a couple of other MUD districts request that as well. So Brian and I have talked about putting something together, but Deidre, if you've got an outline that you would like to share with us on that, we'd be happy to use it.
Like I even had a Jeopardy game, but I don't think I have that anymore. I had a Jeopardy game on MUDs. I always had to think of creative ways to keep my EITs engaged. The other thing was get to know everyone virtual event. And so I have a lot of other organizations that we're trying to find ways to get to know each other. So I don't know if maybe there's like a way to set it up to where we don't have like a quorum on our MUDs, but it's like a MUD mixture. Like a happy hour or something, just like maybe a 30-minute meet and greet. That could be a possibility. That was it. That's all I have.
Can we do that with open meetings? I don't know.
You can do it without a quorum, two people meeting.
Two people?
Well, we know the AWBD has meet and greets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
at
this
their
is Brian. I mean,
format.
the open meetings requirement relates to deliberation of district business. I mean, we generally discourage group meetings out of an abundance of caution, because it's very easy for a conversation to drift into MUD business that wasn't intended to. It's just human nature. But technically, I mean, if everybody minded their P's and Q's and it was just purely social, but not talking about district business, I mean, that's how you are able to have, a quorum of directors sitting at a table at AWBD, as long as they're just sitting there listening and don't say, oh, that was an interesting presentation. How does this relate to this issue with the MUD? And then you start talking about MUD, then you have a problem. But if everyone was careful, then legally it would be possible, as long as there's not a quorum deliberating district business.
Sounds good to me. Good clarification. Anything else that we need to discuss this evening?
This has been a very nice conversation. I appreciate y'all coming.
Sorry, I'm sorry I came late.
Well, let's schedule another one and make sure we get it on your calendar. So I agree, George. This has been good to hear these new things and try to make a better mud district. And once again, Scott's comment of world-class utility, we are.
I firmly believe that.
And I know I've heard over my years of attending AWBD meetings and just going to functions, there's some real problems out there with mud districts and getting the water to people to their houses, real problems.
Okay, so I face those problems.
Yes, yes.
And I will tell you, you do not have tomato plants growing at your wastewater treatment plants. You're not calling your operators saying, why is there water all over my pump room? You're not a director saying, I'm turning on my faucet and nothing's coming out. These are all problems that I have had to deal with in my career. So there are definitely horror stories out there.
That's correct. I agree 100%. I'm glad you're on board, Deidre. I'm glad you're on the Mud 46 board.
But I think tomatoes and watermelons growing at the wastewater treatment plant is a good thing.
Put that into the scope of work for the.
Yeah, this would probably be a bad time for a joke about wastewater reuse.
Not when you're trying to pass a TCQ inspection.
Okay.
It's not
All right.
Vegetables would be a agriculture department function, I think, wouldn't it? Department of Agriculture, tomatoes and watermelons.
Oh, for them to inspect?
Sure.
Yes, I had to get rid of it before the inspector came out there. That was my solution.
Okay.
Really quick, I wanted to tell you guys, if you have never toured the surface water treatment plant, the SJRA has a really neat tool on their website that can give you a virtual tour of the surface water treatment plant.
Okay.
I toured their office building, but not the plant itself.
It's
I'll have to check that out.
not a video or anything, but it's really neat tool that they use GIS for. So I was really impressed. I'm going for LMC on Thursday, so I'm gonna get to. I was there when they started building it, but I didn't get to see it finished.
You said you're going for, did you say LNC or what did you say?
LMC, Leadership Montgomery County.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Very good. Okay.
All right. So we're gonna have on our monthly mud meeting, we're gonna have a report from the River Authority, and Jim, you're gonna contact them on the water reuse and customers.
Yes, I will. We'll have an agenda item and make sure that they're prepared again to talk about what they've done, where they've been, where they are, and where they might be going.
Do we have an agenda item for the discussion of setting sewer rates and any exceptions based on leaks that occurred during the cold snap?
We're going to talk about that at the trustee meeting. And then depending on how that goes, have it, I guess, on the mud agendas as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim, would that be any different than any kind of other water leaks people have had? What would be different?
Well, we're still trying to get a handle on what the magnitude of those requests might be. And if we, what we think today is there's going to be so many that we want to give the authority to our customer service staff to make those decisions while the customer's on the phone in that one
Oh, okay.
phone call, rather than
Okay,
draw it out over a period of months and meetings.
okay,
Okay, so leak exception and then also sewer rate.
Yeah,
setting.
talk about could maybe
Yeah.
continuing, as we've sent out an email, we are, for this billing cycle, we used the
Yep, I saw
last
that.
year's sewer calculation, and again, depending on what we're seeing as far as the volumes request, that we just continue that throughout this year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We done?
I think so. This has been great.
Okay, good deal.
Okay, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Bye.